All right, welcome everybody to another video by Shane and also with Brother David in the East. Say hello. Right.
Hello, everybody.
And we talked last time a little bit about doctrine and covenants, and I decided I wanted to talk a little bit about the Book of Mormon. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is because we want to be like the noble Bereans. We want to search the scriptures, whether these things are so. We want to test all things, hold fast to that which is good. And so there are things that are true and there are things that are false. And God has given us the criteria which we can base something as false or true. And so if the Book of Mormon is true, David, would you become a Latter-day Saint if it was true?
Uh, yes,
If it was true.
if it was true,
If
I
it was
guess I
true.
would. If it was true, I would. I think.
Hmm. Yeah, and I would become a Latter-day Saint too if it's found to be true. I just like we test the Quran. We would test the Bible, and David and I have done that. I think we've over many years. I've looked at skeptical and objections, and I've found to be very weak. There are answers out there. If we study about these alleged contradictions, you just have to study them out and be honest and there are possible answers to them. So
Yeah. Uh, you also have to look. Sometimes there. We need to be honest that there could be an alleged contradiction that we might not know in the Bible. We might not know how to explain. That doesn't mean there's not an explanation,
hmm
because we don't have all the background historical information that is behind the Bible. There's sometimes we just have to be open and honest and say I don't know. But at the same time, you have to balance that out with evidence for the Christian religion. Is the evidence for the Christian religion incredibly strong? If it
yes.
is, then when it comes to stuff that maybe I don't have an answer for, I can still have confidence that you know it's true. I can trust Jesus. That doesn't
hmm
in that's not a blind faith, because I know that Jesus is God based upon other evidence. I know that the Bible is true based on other strong evidence. And so when I come
Yeah.
across something, like a minor problem that I just can't reconcile,
Like
well, this
Darius the Mede.
yes, there's exactly that's exactly true. There's some things that we simply have to say I don't know, and that's okay. We don't have, when you think about the number of historical documents that have been lost to history, and there's lots of things that I don't know, and there's lots of things that the critics of the Bible do not know. And so we need to be careful that we don't come across as I've got an answer to everything. Well, no, I don't. But
Yeah.
I do have the answer ultimately to everything in God, and I have good proof that God exists, that He's revealed Himself through His Son Jesus Christ, etc. And so there's good independent evidence for the Christian religion, even if I don't have an explanation for every little so-called contradiction.
I think about the best explanation. Christianity is the best explanation to reality.
Yeah,
Um, Atheism, it can't explain morality. It cannot explain the origin of things. It cannot explain. There's so many things it cannot explain. Um,
right, right.
and Christianity does a better job.
Yeah,
It fits.
yeah. The way I like to form the argument is really there's only three possibilities. Either all of reality can be explained by atheism, no God. All of reality can be explained by Christian theism, the God of the Bible, or all of reality can be explained by some other form of theism. And I guess Mormonism would be some other form of theism. I wouldn't even consider Mormonism Christianity. it's really more of a pagan, if I remember correctly. There's a lot of paganistic ideas in Mormonism, and so
certainly polytheistic when one is
yeah, that's
honest
what I
with
meant. Yeah,
when one is honest with the theological data that that Brigham Young brought up and Joseph Smith brought up. I mean, so
yes. So when you got those three possibilities, Christian theism, some other form of theism, or atheism, well, we can rule out atheism right off the bat. I mean, I think the evidence against atheism is quite frankly overwhelming. If you're an atheist, basically you're pinned into a corner where you have to argue that all of reality is really just some kind of cosmic accident, which just intuitively is absurd. So anyway, I think we can rule out atheism. So now this is kind of a debate between Christian theism versus some other form of theism. And the question is, which has the better evidence supporting it? And so,
but what's so disheartening is that once, let's say, a Mormon learns the truth that Mormonism is false, then sadly they make the leap into atheism normally, and that's really sad because they bypass true Christianity.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I think a good starting point with any worldview is to start ruling out what we all agree on. And so if I were to talk with a Mormon, I would say, well, before we get into studying your religion, we agree that atheism is false. And they would say, sure, yeah. And so, right off the bat, we can X out atheism from the possibilities. And if we need to, we can go over the arguments why atheism is false. Arguments from creation, arguments from morality, arguments from reason. There's all kinds of different ways we can make that argument, but atheism is false. And so, when you study with people, what I've found is start to find common ground. What do we agree with the Mormons on? And that way they are more likely to listen to us if we start with what we agree on, and then we say, yeah, I agree with you. Atheism is wrong. Let's talk about, and then we can do a critique of Mormonism. And to be fair, we could also, when we're studying with a Mormon, we could say, well, we can also do a critique of Christian theism if you want to, and see which one of those better is supported by evidence.
Okay, so I just want to start, and this is actually the first book of Nephi. So, if you remember, David, basically what the Book of Mormon is about is there were a couple of migrations from Asia to America. So the Jaredites, they left the Tower of Babel, they came to America. One of the last sons of Zedekiah, named Mulek, he came to America with a couple of others. Lehi, which is this third Lehi just came a little bit earlier than Mulek did. And so he, with his family, came to America. You've always wondered, well, where did the American Indians come from? And I had that question quite a bit. And what makes sense to me is, holding to a Christian worldview, is that when the Tower of Babel happened, even, of course, that about 100 years or so after the flood, and we know there was an ice age going on, according to the evidence, you have these land bridges, and that seems to be the case, that the Bering Strait was once a land bridge from Russia to North America, and people crossed over because they found DNA evidence of the American Indians having Asian origin.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. When after the flood, the world as we know it, or the world as Noah knew it, was completely revamped. The climate was radically different, I believe, and I think that even atheists admit that there was at least one ice age, and so
Which lasted like
because
500 to 700 years, not like millions, like or.
yeah, in fact, uh, in my view, I don't disagree with global warming. I actually believe that we have been getting warmer because since the flood, the ice age melted and so forth. The climate has kind of settled down, and so I have no problem with saying, yeah, temperatures are rising, but
Hmm.
I don't think necessarily that my car is going to make that big of a difference in it, but
Right. It's
but
the
I don't deny global warming in that sense per se.
Yeah. I mean,
I,
the question is over: do humans
yeah.
contribute largely to that? That's a question for debate.
Yeah, and I know I'm kind of chasing a rabbit here, but I guess the point I'm making is that yeah, there was an ice age. The climate of the Earth was radically different after the flood, and
Hmm.
since then the climate has kind of been settling down, so to speak. Since then, and no doubt some of those land bridges and so forth, no doubt contributed to how these different populations scattered all over the Earth.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, so in the early in the early, well, even in early America, this is actually a known fact that there were many books being written where these early Americans took the view that these American Indians or American, whatever you want to call them, Native
Yeah,
Americans, thought they were actually from Israelite origin, the lost 10
interesting.
tribes of Israel. And
Ah, the Lost in Tribes.
there's several books on that. If people want to look them up, just type it in. You'll find a couple of the early founding fathers. Well, maybe well, yeah, I guess he was a founding father. Elias Boutinot, it's Boutinot. It's hard to say. 18. He wrote a book
Is
in
he French or
1860.
something?
He wrote no, well, I don't know. To be honest, I know he wrote a book in 1816 on this topic of the lost tribes of Israel. James Aldair was one, several others. So this view was held, and what's interesting is that view was held at Dartmouth College, where Solomon Spaulding went to school. So
So we can kind of tell where he got some of these ideas from.
yeah, yeah, I could see him being in debt and trying to figure out a way, since he was educated, how to and him finding these bones actually unearthed, and that would be something very that would really catch the imagination of people, like what were these early inhabitants like, and to have a book to be a bestseller about that kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
So, like I said to everybody, maybe in our last video, please watch the series on the origin of the Book of Mormon. I know it's a 17-part series. I know it's long, but it takes you through, I think, a good sequence of what took place and how it was came from a human origin. Now, in these videos, what I'm trying to do is that was the external evidence. Now I'm giving the internal evidence. I'm showing you how Sidney Rigdon took Solomon Spaulding's novel and how he revamped it, so to speak. He edited it and put religious texts into it and stuff of that nature. And voila, here comes the Book of Mormon. So, and we're going to see that a little bit today, I think, as we go through this. So, you ready to go on this roller coaster ride?
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Well, I'm writing an article right now for the Voice of Truth International, and it's questions I've asked about the Book of Mormon because I've read it a number of times, and I just have some questions. Now, some of these questions do not necessarily prove it to be false, but it does, I think, raise some red flags. And I just really would like to have a dialogue with Latter-day Saints about this because I think it's important that we
Yeah.
have a dialogue. And so let's begin. So here's some of the questions that I have about this. So you can see here it talks about I Nephi. So this is one of the sons of Lehi. And just notice this. Can you see verse 2? I just want to make
Yes.
sure. So he says, Yea, I make a record in the language of my father, which consists of the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians. Does that strike you a little bit? I mean, here's a Jew living in the time of the Zedekiah, and his father. He says, "My father Lehi having dwelt at Jerusalem in all of his days." And we even learned later on that his even his ancestors knew Egyptian. But doesn't it just strike you a little odd that I mean, not that there's nothing wrong with learning a second language, but why we find out later on that this book was written in Reformed Egyptian. But why would you write a book in Reformed Egyptian when you could write it in Hebrew? Because we've been studying the book of Daniel, and what two languages are used there, David?
Yeah, Hebrew and Aramaic.
Yeah,
And
Hebrew and
so,
Aramaic. And I mean, and we gotta give an explanation of why it was written in Hebrew, because that's the language that the Hebrews would have read, and it's prophecies about Israel. But Aramaic was also known in that time, and it's was known around the whole world. Um,
yes.
and it was prophecies concerning the Gentiles, so they would have been able to read it as well. So it makes sense why it's written in Hebrew and Aramaic. And then, of course, we find out later on it's translated in Greek. We do have Greek manuscripts of Daniel. We have fragments. And
Yeah.
why? Because later on it would become the known language of the ancient world, that people knew Greek, and so they translated into Greek. But here, I just don't, I really ask, why was Egyptian hieroglyphics used to translate this book? I mean, you know, I,
Now, were they were in Jerusalem? Is that right?
yeah, they were in Jerusalem.
So, what connection do they have here with the Egyptians? I'm not sure about the background of the Book
Well,
of Mormon. So,
it's just that these Jews knew the, um, I want to put in Egypt. See, I want to show you something interesting here,
okay.
just to show you. So we got let me go a little bit further here. Um, yeah, see, this is in the book of Mosiah, and notice this. It says, this is later on. So the other book, First Nephi, it was about 600 BC. Um,
Supposedly.
yeah, supposedly. I mean, but this
Yeah.
one is written around 100 and, well, I know it's about, oh, there it is, about 130 to 124
Yeah.
BC. So here's what it says. It says, "For it were not possible that our father Lehi could have remembered all these things, except it were for the help of these plates. For he, having been taught in the language of the Egyptians,
Uh,
therefore he could read these engravings and teach them to his children, that thereby they could teach them to their children, and so fulfilling the commandments of God, even down to this present time." So even Egyptian was taught, I mean, for 500 years, from 600 BC to 100 BC-ish,
yeah. It kind of seems odd to me. The Egyptian. I mean, the Egyptians were enemies of the Hebrews. You know, it's
Um,
like I, I don't know why if you're making up I don't know.
well, let me just show you one other thing. So if you go to, well, um, oh, I'm trying to find where it talks about Hebrew.
I mean, now the Mormons don't they supposedly admit the Bible is a part of their? They just add the Book of Mormon to the Bible, so to speak. Isn't that correct? Don't they claim to be kind of
Yeah, I
eclectic or
mean,
something like that?
they do claim it to be inspired. Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's what I thought that was the case, and so it just seemed kind of
Well,
odd to me that they're kind
let
of
me,
giving props to Egyptian. language.
Sorry, I don't know why that ain't coming up, but it should come up. Let me just put in Reformed Egyptian. That should work. Because I want people to see this for themselves. I mean, somebody. Okay, so, well, I don't know why it's not finding it because. Okay, let me just go to Mormon 9 here. Let me just go Ether 1 here. Sorry, I apologize, everybody. I thought I'd just go to it. You know, I mean, I thought that'd be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah. Technology.
Yeah, technology. It's
great when it works.
It's great when it works. Don't like it when it doesn't work. So fourth book. Okay, well, let me go a little bit farther here. Apologize to everybody about this, but can't help it. Okay. Ether. Okay. All right, so here's what it says, verse 32. Yeah. All right, so he says this. So this is written around, I don't know, 400 AD, I think, somewhere, well, somewhere around that time. And it says, "And now behold, we have written this record according to our knowledge and the characters which are called among us the Reformed Egyptian, being handed down and altered by us according to our manner of speech." Now notice this, if our plates had been sufficiently large, we should have written in Hebrew. But the Hebrew hath been altered by us also, and if we could have written in Hebrew, behold, you would have no imperfection in our record.
So they're actually claiming that the record is not perfect.
I'm confused. I'm honestly confused by what he wrote there. I really am. And, but anyways.
Is he admitting that his record is not perfect? And if it's not, then what are we going to take as right and what are we going to throw out? Kind of creates a dilemma, if you ask me.
And I just really like to ask Lardy saying about this, if they don't mind, because I really like to learn what you believe about that. So, like I said, it doesn't necessarily prove it false, but it's just, why would you write something in Egyptian language when you knew Hebrew in the first? I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's very strange.
Kind of odd. Yeah.
Okay, so just going a little bit further here, I just have some other questions about the Book of Mormon. So, I'm going to go a little bit further here. Okay, so just to let you know, so they go out into the wilderness. Lehi's told to go out, but then they return to Jerusalem because God wants them to get the genealogical plates, which are called the brass plates of Laban. Just to let you know. And I just want you to think about what this says here. And I want to get your thoughts about this when you first read it, because it's sometimes good to just get someone's fresh perspective to see if they see what you see. And First Nephi 5:19. So it says, "And after I," talking about Nephi, "had smitten off his head with his own sword, I took the garments of Laban and put them upon my own body, yea, even every whit, and I did gird on his armor about my loins." So he gets the plates. I'm just gonna go a little bit further. If that's all right. Well, where is that verse at? First Nephi. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the 5:19. Well, I thought that would 6:19, I guess. 5:19. Here we go. I was in the wrong chapter. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so it says, "And now when my father saw all these things, he was filled with the Spirit and began to prophesy concerning his seed, that these plates of brass should go forth unto all nations." And these are the plates of Laban, just to let everybody know. unto who are of his seed. Wherefore he said that these plates of brass should never perish, neither should they be dimmed any more by time. And he prophesied many things concerning his seed. Now, you know, well, he goes on. Let me just keep reading. And it came to pass that thus far I and my father had kept the commandments wherewith the Lord had commanded us, and we had attained the records which the Lord had commanded us, and searched them and found that they were desirable, yea, even a great worth unto us, insomuch that we could preserve the commandments of the Lord unto our children. So my question is, David, if you look back, so these plates of brass are to go forth unto all nations. I mean, that means that they should know about them, right?
Yeah.
They will never perish. But I mean, where are these plates of brass today? I mean, we don't have them, um,
Yeah.
and so it just
That's kind of weird. Now, do they mean are are the plates supposedly translated or something in the Book of Mormon or?
well, there are several different types of plates.
Okay.
I mean, many different types of plates. And these are, like I said, these are plates of brass, and
Yeah.
the
And it
the
does specifically say that these plates of brass will go forth unto all nations, not necessarily like copies of it or whatever. It seems like it's the plates, the brass themselves.
and Joseph Smith found golden plates, so these are
Yeah.
not the same plates.
Oh, okay. These are not even those plates. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things that I often wonder about. But here's another thing I wonder about. So it says, so the Lord told Lehi to go back. Well, told his sons to go back. The
Yeah.
sons go back and they get the plates of brass. And here's what it says in verse 16. I want you to read that for us.
And thus my father Lehi did discover the genealogy of his fathers, and Laban also was a descendant of Joseph, wherefore he and his fathers had kept the records.
Now, does that strike you a little bit odd that Lehi, it says, living in Jerusalem all his days, and yet he doesn't know the genealogy of his own family until now? I mean,
That is not realistic. If you take the Old Testament as being true, and I'm assuming they try to accept that,
yeah, I mean,
that's not even realistic.
and can you give your reason why you would say it's not
Well, I
realistic?
mean, for the Jews, genealogy was everything. I mean, that's basically
Mm-hmm.
how you apportion land, and where was he? If he didn't know his genealogy, then was he like a vagabond or something? I mean, you know, I mean, it doesn't even make sense. To a Jew, genealogy was everything, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah, I
uh,
know. That's the thing. I mean, they were looking for the Messiah. They would know that, he came from the
yeah,
tribe
that's
of
even
Judah.
bigger. Yeah, yeah,
I
and
mean,
the Levitic tribe, the tribe of Judah, the kingly tribe, and so to a Jew, these prophecies, these genealogies would have been everything. I mean, that's yeah, that
well,
doesn't that to me that strikes me as being very weird and not in accord with Old Testament history.
okay. Well, let me just kind of pursue off this thought a little bit, if I might. So, well, supposedly, tribe. I'm I'm supposed to be spelling Manasseh right, but I don't know. I'm trying to spell Manasseh, but it's not coming up for some reason. Ah, I don't know why it's not working. Manesseh, right? Well, let me just go. All right, let me just show people. I don't know why that's not working. So we're going to go to the book of Alma, chapter 10 here. Alma, chapter 10. We learned a little bit more about this. So Alma, chapter 10. So it says, and Menadi was a descendant of Nephi, who was the son of Lehi, who came out of the land of Jerusalem. then we learn a little bit further. He was a descendant of Manasseh. So he was the son of Joseph, who was sold into Egypt. So they came from the tribe of Manasseh. Okay. That's very
Okay.
important because I want to bring out something here. So they finally get to America. And in Second Nephi, we learn a couple of things, David, and I want to see if you see what I see. So Second Nephi chapter 6 here. Um, Lehi, he actually has two more sons in the wilderness. And let's see. Well, I don't know why it's not priest. Let me just put in priest. Yeah. So chapter 5, verse 26. So it came to pass that I, Nephi, did consecrate Jacob and Joseph, that they should be priests and teachers over the land of my people. Do you see a problem?
Joseph. Yeah, the priests. Well, what about the tribe of Levi?
Right. But what tribe were they from? They were from
Manasseh.
Manasseh. And
Yeah.
so did Nephi have any right? Because what we learn is, I want you to see something here. I mean, just a little bit earlier, he says this. I want to let everybody, yeah, he says, I mean, we can read all this if we want, but it says, we did observe to keep the judgment, verse 10, and we did keep the judgment of, did observe to keep the judgments and statutes and the commandments of the Lord in all things according to the law of Moses.
So here we have a clear contradiction. So
Yeah,
whoever wrote this obviously had not read the Old Testament very well.
right. And another thing is, okay, so they've traveled to America. Lehi has some sons and daughters, we learn, and they have children. And I just want you to notice something here, David. Here you have, let's see, just going a little bit further here. Okay, so you see here, verse 28. Let me just get rid of this here. So it says, and 30 years had passed away from the time we left Jerusalem. 30 years. Okay.
Okay.
So if you the sons of Levi did indeed get married and they had children. So just imagine yourself having children for 30 years. Now, if we work out the math of 4 sons and daughter and we're not told how many daughters Lehi had, but let's just say he had about 6 children and 6 children marrying off, so that's 12. And then you have children, and let's just say you have a child, every year. So that's 30,
Yeah.
30 children. If you did 30, let's just do 30 times 12. You say you're good at math. You remember what 30 times 12 is?
Well, 30 times 10 would be 300, and then 30 times 2 would be 60, so it'd be 360, wouldn't it?
All right, yeah, 360, and let's just give it a little leeway. Let's say you had about 400. I mean, I don't mind. But here's the thing. So, if you read verse 6, I want you to read verse 16 and tell me what you see.
And I, Nephi, did build a temple, and I did construct it after the manner of the temple of Solomon, save it were not built of so many precious things, for they were not to be found upon the land, wherefore it could not be built like unto Solomon's temple. But the manner of the construction was like unto the temple of Solomon, and the workmanship thereof was exceedingly fine.
Do you see why I have some skepticism toward this book? I mean, yeah, it wasn't exactly like Solomon's temple. They didn't have all the precious things. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read First Kings in a while, but First Kings talks about the construction of Solomon's temple. Do you know how
Uh
many people worked on Solomon's temple?
huh.
uh, Take about several 100,000 people. Um,
Yep.
And here you have 360 people working on something that's akin to Solomon's temple. And
Yeah.
it took 7.5 years to build the Temple of Solomon. So
How long
I don't
does
know
it take
about
to build
you, but
this one? Does it say?
it doesn't say, uh,
Yeah.
I admit. But you know, I don't
But
know.
that
It just
doesn't. Yeah, that doesn't sound like quite like the construction of Solomon's temple.
hmm
I mean, obviously they're saying it wasn't like it, but surely they're making some comparison. So
Well, here's another problem with this that people can, um, if we go to, I want to go to Bible Gateway. I wasn't planning on actually looking this up, but if can you see that? Am I
yeah,
okay? Um, so it said, I don't know if I can go a little bit. Uh, well, I was going to zoom in a little bit more. I was zoom in a little bit more than that. A little bit more than that. Okay, so it says so God says to Israel, and he says, "But you shall seek the place where the Lord your God chooses out of all your tribes to put his name for his dwelling place, and there you shall go. There you shall take your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, the heave offerings of your hand, your vowed offerings, so forth." So God actually authorized a place that he would put his name, that he would
yeah.
dwell at. And eventually, where would that be in the Bible?
Well, that would be the church.
Well, that's true. I mean, but
Oh, you're talking about in the Old Testament?
yeah. I'm sorry. I meant the Old Testament.
Yeah, the temple.
Yeah,
Solomon's temple, and then of
yeah.
course it was rebuilt. And
I
the
mean,
temple in Jerusalem.
we have several places like Shiloh where God, it was temporary tabernacle at first, and then later on, God finally, he chooses a place, which would be, of course, in Jerusalem. So, I mean, this is the place, right?
Yep.
Later on in history, we learn about the Samaritans and what was their problem? Why did they commit
They
unauthorized
worship.
worship?
Yeah, they worshipped on Mount Gerizim,
Right, that wasn't
and
the right
so
place.
it wasn't the right place to worship. Yeah. In
Yeah,
fact,
in John 4, we learned that Jesus says that.
In
Oh, go
fact,
ahead.
the Samaritans tried to prevent the rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem. You can read about that in Ezra 4, I think it is.
So
Um,
my point is,
yeah.
Nephi had no authorization to build a place for God here in America. You
Uh-huh.
know, so he consecrates priests that were not from the right tribe, and it
Yeah, you
said,
would think they would have a completely different law. Why in the world? It would have to be something completely different than the law of Moses.
mm-hmm. So that's some of the points that just raise some red flags to me about the Book of Mormon.
Yeah,
So
interesting
um,
stuff.
so let me go a little bit further. So like we said, I want to go back. Actually, I want to go up to the very first of the Book of Mormon. So you'll find it gives a see. It says here. I mean, this is a part of them. Wherefore is an abridgment of the record of the people of Nephi and also of the Lamanites written to the Lamanites who are a remnant of the house of Israel. Well, the Lamanites to the Latter Day Saints, they became the American Indians or the Native Americans. So,
Yeah.
so here's my question. There are many different types of tribes of Native Americans. You got the Sioux, you got the Chickasaw, and Cherokee, and all sorts of. I mean, I actually recently got a book called Echoes of Ararat. It's a really great book. It talks about the flood legends in both North America and South America that were held by
Yeah.
these Native American tribes. But as you know, these people speak a different speak all sorts of different languages. So,
Yeah.
so this is just me, but wouldn't you think that if these people did come from the Lamanites, they would know either Egyptian or Hebrew? I mean, wouldn't you
Yeah.
expect them to know that language?
Yes.
So that to me tips off a red hat. I mean, tips off of red flags there. So that's just my take on that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, so
Strange. Yeah.
go ahead. I mean,
No, I was just saying that's just yeah. It's very odd. There's lots of these little subtle things that just over time it kind of like doesn't make sense.
all right, let's go a little bit further because I want to go to second. I want to go to First Nephi chapter 10. I'm just gonna let me just zoom through this a little bit. Okay, so this is I think this is very important as we go through this. Um, I'll let you do a little bit of reading here. So, would you mind? Let's see. Well, just read verses 1 and 2, if you don't mind.
Okay, it says, "And now I, Nephi, proceed to give an account upon these plates of my proceedings in my reign and ministry. Wherefore, to proceed with mine account, I must speak somewhat of the things of my father and also of my brethren. For behold, it came to pass after my father had made an end of speaking the words of his dream, and also of exhorting them to all diligence, he spake unto them concerning the Jews,
All right, keep reading.
that after they should be destroyed, even that great city Jerusalem, and many carried away captive into Babylon, according to the own due time of the Lord, they should return again, yea, even be brought back out of captivity, and after they should be brought back out of captivity, they should possess again the land of their inheritance."
All right, I'll read a little bit and you can give some comment. So, yeah, even 600 years from the time that my father left Jerusalem, a prophet would the Lord God raise up among the Jews, even a Messiah, or in other words, a savior of the world. Now, I don't know about you, but that's savior of the world is
Uh
taken
huh.
from John 4:42. Where the
Yeah.
Samaritan woman, she said, "This is the Savior of the world."
Yeah.
Um, I think it's 42. I know it's in John 4. And he also spake concerning the prophets, how great a number testified of these things concerning this Messiah, of whom he had spoken, or this Redeemer of the world. Wherefore all mankind were in a lost and a fallen state, and never would be saved. They should rely on this Redeemer. And he spake also concerning a prophet who should come before the Messiah to prepare the way of the Lord. Now,
Yeah.
who's that? Who's that sound like?
John the
John the
Baptist.
Baptist, right? Yea,
Yeah.
even he should go forth and quiet. Now, this is interesting. So, I mean, prepare you the way of the Lord, make his path straight, which is Isaiah chapter 40. For there standeth one among you whom ye know not, and he is mightier than I, whose shoes latchet I'm not worthy to unloose. Uh, I mean, that's quoted from John himself in the
Yes.
gospel accounts.
Yes.
And so you have this written in 600 BC, and yet it's quoting from the New Testament that hadn't been written down yet.
Yeah, and the wording here is yeah, it's just too close to the New Testament. It doesn't make, if it's a prophecy, you would expect it to be a little bit more ambiguous than that.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not word for word identical to John.
Yeah. Okay, so he says, and my father said he should baptize in Bethabara. Wow, even so beyond Jordan. He also said he should baptize with water, even that he should baptize. Now this is what's interesting to me. So we have a book written in Reformed Egyptian, right?
Yeah.
But the word baptize, that's a Greek word. It's transliterated into
Yes.
English. So that to me is an indicator that this is a fraud. Because I mean, if you're translating this word for word, you wouldn't say baptize, you would translate it immerse. So,
Is this
or
is this supposedly taken from Egyptian or
yeah. I remember how we read a little bit earlier. It said that
so this
we
is an English translation of the Egyptian?
yeah, this is a English translation of the Reformed
Uh,
Egyptian.
yeah, I'm just kind of wondering what the when supposedly this was translated.
Well, it was translated by supposedly by Joseph Smith. I mean,
Okay, I guess it's possible that Joseph Smith could have just been using the English word baptize since the religious world had already, was using it to describe baptism.
well,
And
I understand that's a good point that you're making, but if you look, well, it should. I don't know why I won't do this, but the word immerse is actually found in the Book of Mormon, but it's not pulling it up for some reason. I don't know why. Why is this not working when I want it to work? That's weird. I mean, it should.
well,
Oh,
I
here we
mean
go.
the word baptize is actually an English word. It is an English word. Shakespeare used it in a non-religious context. So I don't know. Um, I can see where you're going with that, but I can see how they would rebut that and say, well, Joseph Smith was just using a word that even Shakespeare used, and so, you know,
Well, just to let you know, the word immerse is found.
so it is kind of strange that he would choose to use the word baptize there instead of the word immerse.
Let me.
I
I
guess,
can
I
actually.
guess,
I can find it real quick. Just let everybody know that I'm not. I'm not lying about this.
yeah.
um, immerse. Um, yeah. So, well, third Nephi 11:26 and Mosiah 18:14, and then
Yeah.
chapter 18:14 through 16 of Mosiah. I don't know if it uses the word immerse, but uh, there the word immerse is found in. But let's just keep going. So,
Well,
that,
I was gonna say though, the fact that it says that he was told to baptize the Messiah. Well, in the New Testament, John the Baptist was reluctant to baptize Jesus, wasn't he? So,
yeah,
and
well,
Jesus had to say basically, this fulfilled, to fulfill all righteousness.
mhm.
So, if it's kind of like, well, didn't John the Baptist know about this prophecy here, or that he was supposed to do this, or to me that's kind of maybe incongruent, unless they try to say that John the Baptist knew nothing of this prophecy, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
was this book was supposedly
This,
written in Jerusalem? Is that right?
well, it was written in America, 600 BC ish.
Oh, so, okay. So this takes place in America.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I guess they could say John the Baptist was not aware of this prophecy.
yeah, that's what they could say.
Okay.
So it says, and after he had baptized the Messiah with water, he should behold and bear record that he had baptized the Lamb of God who should take away the sins of the world. That's John 1:29.
Yeah.
So once again,
The
quoting from
details are
John,
just
even though it
yeah.
was written down.
It sounds very anachronistic. And if
Hmm.
John wrote it in the first century AD, then 600 BC is just isn't cutting it.
Okay, so it says, and it came to pass after my father had spoken these words, he spake unto my brethren concerning the gospel which should be preached among the Jews, and also concerning the dwindling of the Jews in unbelief, and after they had slain the Messiah who should come, and after he had been slain, he should rise from the dead, and should make himself manifest by the Holy Ghost unto the Gentiles. Now, what's really interesting to me is what he says here. Yea, my father spake much concerning the Gentiles and also concerning the house of Israel, that they should be compared like unto an olive tree, whose branches should be broken off and should be scattered upon the face of the earth. Does that sound familiar to you?
Isn't that out of Zechariah?
Well, I'll show you where it's from. It's from Romans chapter 11.
Oh yeah.
For I speak to you Gentiles, and as much as an apostle of Gentiles, and talking about, it says, for if the
Yeah,
first
cutting
fruit is
off the
holy.
tree. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, definitely taken from Romans here.
yeah,
so, so I mean,
yeah.
I'm just saying that we, this, we have all this stuff taken from other books of the Bible that haven't even been written down yet.
Yes, it sounds more anachronistic than a prophecy. If this were a true prophecy, it wouldn't have been. The wording would not be so precise like this. At least I wouldn't expect it to.
Well, and this is one of the things why I believe Sidney Rigdon, he wrote
Uh-huh.
this. He wrote this part. Now, the earlier chapters are by Solomon Spaulding. They're historical narratives and stuff
Yeah,
of, but he added to this sermon type material that's taken all from the New Testament and even Old Testament.
yeah.
Um, so, like, I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
well, verse 18, for he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. I mean, that's from Hebrews 13, verse 8.
Well, I mean, compare this prophecy to Daniel. Like we've been doing podcasts on the book of Daniel and the prophecies of Daniel. When Daniel prophesied about, say, Alexander the Great, or even Jesus, or even in Daniel chapter 11 and all the details that he gave there, he didn't prophesy like this. The wording was not so precise that it sounds anachronistic.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we could identify the prophecy with the fulfillment, but the wording itself was what we would expect of a prophet writing hundreds of years before. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
So,
I liked your example of the puzzle pieces, and
yeah,
seeing. I mean, here we have Nephi and Lehi seeing the big picture. They
yeah,
um,
yeah. The detail are just too precise, and
mm-hmm.
it doesn't even fit with the genre of prophecy in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm. See, right here, talking about Jesus being born, verse 20, and
Yeah.
then and I answered him, saying, Yea, is the love of God which shedded itself abroad in the hearts of the children of men. Well, that's from Romans chapter 5.
Yeah.
So, it's once again showing that there there's there's a lot of language here that's trying to imitate the Bible. So,
Yeah, and it kind of makes you wonder why. Well, to me, it's quite obvious because whoever wrote this, when obviously his audience was familiar with the Bible, and so he's trying to. It seems like he's trying to give it some authority.
yeah, think about here at the very end of chapter 11, the 12 apostles of the Lamb. That's
Uh-huh.
from Revelation.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't even make sense. That you would not. That's not a reasonable expectation of a prophet in 600 BC using language that precisely matches up with the New Testament, and it's not even supposed to be a prophecy at that point. When he's using that language, not even using it in the sense of prophecy. It's almost like he's just borrowing that language from the New Testament.
Well, one of the things here
Yeah.
that shows itself to be the signal of Rigdon is he
Uh-huh.
keeps on using this key phrase here, like verse 17, the children of men, the children of men, the children of men. You find it a lot in
Yeah.
throughout, and that shows me that he's a part of this, of writing this. Now, here's something really interesting here is, so chapter 13. Nephi sees and vision the church of the devil set up among the Gentiles, the discovery and colonizing of America. So I want to show people something very interesting here. So it says, verse 4, and it came to pass that I saw among the nations of the Gentiles the formation of a great church. And the angel said unto me, behold, the formation of a church which is the most abominable above all other churches, which slayeth the saints of God, yea, and tortureth them, and bindeth them down, and yoketh them with the yoke of iron, and bringeth down into captivity. Came to pass that I beheld this great and abominable church, and I saw the devil that he was the founder of it. Now, what does this remind you of, David, when I read this part? And I also saw gold and silver and silks and scarlets and fine twined linen and all manner of precious clothing. I saw many harlots. Does this
Like
sound
Revelation?
Familiar? Yeah, the book of Revelation. And we saw that earlier with the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And so he's using this apocalyptic language. And you and I know that there were some who held the view about Revelation that the harlot there is representing the Roman Catholicism.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, let's just say, if Nephi is giving an accurate, so to speak, prophecy here, then what is this church? That's great. The formation of a great church. It has to be Roman Catholicism, because one of the details is it tortureth the saints of God. We know that's what Roman Catholicism did for many years.
And this also shows the at the time this was written, this is like the tail end of the Reformation movement, and of course, during the Reformation movement and Revelation, they attribute it to Catholicism, which is understandable.
Well, let me show you something else. So, verse 12. And I looked and beheld a man among the Gentiles who was separated from the seed of my brethren by the many waters. And I beheld the Spirit of God, that it came down and wrought upon the man, and he went forth upon the many waters, even unto the seed of my brethren who were in the promised land. Guess who that man is? Who do you think he's prophesying about? Who came in 1492 and sailed the ocean blue? Yeah,
Columbus.
That's Christopher Columbus there.
Wow. And he went forth upon the many waters. That sounds like Revelation as well.
So, going a little bit further. Now I want you to see something very interesting here, because you'll have something to say about this. Okay, so verse 19. And I, Nephi, beheld that the Gentiles that had gone out of captivity were delivered by the power of God out of the hands of all other nations. And it came to pass that I, Nephi, beheld that they did prosper in the land, and I beheld a book, and it was carried forth among them. And the angel said unto me, knowest thou the meaning of the book? He said unto him, I know not. And he said, behold, it proceedeth out of the mouth of a Jew. So this is the Bible he's talking about here.
Yeah.
And I, Nephi, beheld it, and he said unto me, the book that thou beholdest is a record of the Jews, which contains the covenants of the Lord, which he hath made unto the house of Israel. And also contain many of the prophecies of the holy prophets. It's a record like unto the engravings, which are upon the plates of brass, save there are not so many. Nevertheless, they contain the covenants of the Lord, which he hath made unto the house of Israel. Wherefore they are of great worth unto the Gentiles. And the angel of the Lord said unto me, thou hast beheld that the book proceedeth forth from the mouth of a Jew. And when it proceedeth forth from the mouth of a Jew, it contained the fullness of the gospel of the Lord, of whom the 12 apostles bear record. So this is how I know it's the Bible, because, the New Testament. And they bear record according to the truth which is in the Lamb of God. Wherefore these things go forth from the Jews in purity unto the Gentiles, according to the truth which is in God. And after they go forth by the hand of the 12 apostles of the Lamb, from the Jews unto the Gentiles, thou seest the formation of that great and abominable church? Well, that's the Roman Catholicism, which is most abominable of all other churches. For behold, they have taken away from the gospel of the Lamb many parts which are plain and most precious. Now, we can prove this is false, can't we? Did Roman Catholicism destroy the manuscript, or destroy all the manuscripts of the Bible? Did they pervert did they corrupt the transmission of the Bible? That's what we, you know, and the
No.
answer and the answer is no, they didn't. Sorry. So, I mean, we
Yeah,
have.
and so I'm kind of wondering if the Book of Mormon says they did, well, does that mean they have a true copy of the New Testament, or you know,
Well,
how would
whenever.
they know? How would they know that?
Well, and this is where, when and where did the corruption of the text take place? Because we have, a lot of manuscript evidence, and we could, pinpoint if something was amiss.
Well,
Um,
that's the thing. We've got manuscripts not just from one location. We have manuscripts all over the Roman Empire from different places, different
mhm.
time periods. The people behind the manuscripts actually had even different belief systems, and yet pretty much their copies are identical. So
Right.
you know,
See, Mormonism makes the same claim that Islam does. When we ever talk about, whenever we discuss, the religion of Islam, they'll say, well, the Bible is corrupted,
yeah.
and well, when and where was it corrupted? I mean, give us
When
your
and
evidence.
where, and why should we trust that this book that wasn't corrupted? You know, you get into that question. Why should we trust that? How do we know that this Book of Mormon is not corrupted?
And what's interesting
You
here is
know,
verse 27, they might pervert the right ways of the Lord. Paul said that to Elamus in
yeah,
Acts 13, that they might blind the eyes, in which that's what happened to him. So,
yeah. It's like, wow. What's so ironic is what they're accusing the New Testament of being corrupted is they're actually the ones corrupting it. That's
oh,
the irony of it all.
yeah.
Because they're borrowing from the New Testament and plugging into this work and misapplying what just for their own whatever reason why they created it for their own benefit, I guess. They're guilty of what they're accusing the I guess the Catholic Church of doing or whatever.
So, I mean, you can see that Reardon added a lot of insertions. I mean, he started back in chapter 10, and now it keeps on even going. He's still going in chapter 14.
Yeah.
Um, and I could show some other language that he imitates the Bible from, but I just want to kind of go a little bit further and ask some more questions, if that be all right. So, chapter 15, definitely more Rigdon. Well, I mean, once again, he's introducing this idea, verse 16, of the olive tree. He goes
Yeah.
back to Romans again. So, he has a bunch of stuff from Romans, Revelation. You see all this mixture together and stuff,
Yeah.
in which Rigdon did like the prophets a lot. So it makes sense why he would pick this stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm just kind of making sure. Okay, so then what's really interesting to me is, so chapter 16. So if you were to take out chapter 10 through 15, you would take out this whole, so to speak, prophecy, and then you would have, I believe, Solomon Spaulding's historical narrative again. It's kind of interesting when you start to, delete things and you kind of see, well, if we delete this out, then you can kind of see Solomon Spaulding's work again. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's something that people would have to do themselves. But let me go down here to chapter 22. I just want to show some people some other things here. Now, I want to get your thoughts about this. Okay. Um, verse. I'll make sure I got the right verse here. 15. Yeah. Okay, so it says. Now, I just want to see if you recognize this. For behold, saith the prophet, the time cometh speedily that Satan shall have no more power over the hearts of the children of men. Once again, Rigdon, because that key phrase there, children of men. For the day soon cometh that all the proud and they who do wickedly shall be as stubble, and the day cometh that they must be burned. Does that sound familiar to you? Uh, anything about that? Those who do wickedly shall be as stubble.
Yeah. I'm
Do you
trying to think
remember?
of the verse.
Do you remember where?
Yeah,
Well,
I was thinking of John the Baptist, but I guess yeah, originally it came from Malachi, because
um,
that kind of imagery was used by John the Baptist as well. But yeah, Malachi 4. Yeah.
yeah. For behold, the day is coming, burn like an oven, and all the proud, yea, who all do wickedly, will be as stubble, and the day which is coming shall burn them up, says the Lord of hosts. I mean, it does seem that that language there is where that's
That's
taken from.
yeah. Yeah, that's identical to it.
But here's the problem. I told you this was written in 600 BC.
Yeah.
So, so what's the problem?
Well, Malachi was written in the 400s, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. That and I mean, so he's writing it even before, you know, uh,
Malachi even wrote it.
Malachi even wrote it. And what's interesting is, look here, down here at the 15a, it
Yeah.
quotes Malachi 4:1. So even they recognize that it comes from Malachi chapter 4, verse 1.
That is interesting that even they recognize the connections to the Old and New Testaments. Their quotes are from there. And so it
Mm-hmm.
kind of is weird then. It's like, well, if they're quoting it, why are they quoting stuff that was written afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
Like why would they? It doesn't even kind of really make sense
So,
because they're
oh, go ahead.
well,
No, go
it's
ahead.
because the quotations are not. Um, it's not as if they're saying, you know, and in the first century, so and so is going to say this. They're just they're quoting it and then they're reapplying it in a
Mm-hmm.
different way, and
Mm-hmm.
so they're using it as if it were a source that they had before them, and not they're not even attempting to claim that it's a prophecy, about the future.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about Second Nephi, and I want to get your thoughts about this. We're kind of getting into a little bit more theological problems, I believe. So look at what I want you to. I want to ask you about what you think about this. Yeah. All right. So, well, let me see. Okay. Well, let's go to verse 19 first. Would you mind reading verse 19 and 20?
Sure. And after Adam and Eve had partaken of the forbidden fruit, they were driven out of the Garden of Eden to till the earth. And they have brought forth children, yea, even the family of all the earth.
All right, keep going.
And the days of the children of men were prolonged according to the will of God, that they might repent while in the flesh. Wherefore their state became a state of probation, and their time was lengthened, according to the commandments which the Lord God gave unto the children of men. For he gave commandment that all men must repent, for he showed unto all men that they were lost because of the transgression of their parents.
Let me ask you a question. They were all lost. They were lost because of the transgression of their parents. Do you see a problem?
Yeah, it's kind of Calvinistic.
Yeah, it is. It's total hereditary depravity, and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess you could argue that they're using, but even so, they're borrowing language from Romans. Sin entered the world through one man or whatever. I guess you could vaguely argue that they're using it in that sense,
mhm.
uh, but I don't know. It seems more Calvinistic to me, and I guess they're from Paul.
Now here's something interesting about verse 22. And now behold, if Adam had not transgressed, he would not have fallen. Okay, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But he would have remained in the Garden of Eden, and all things which were created must have remained in the same state in which they were after they were created, and they must have remained forever and had no end. Now, this is the part here. And they would have had no children, wherefore they would have remained in a state of innocence, having no joy, for they knew no misery, doing no good, for they knew no sin. Now,
Yeah,
I don't.
that's just wrong.
Yeah. What did? Let me ask you this: before sin entered the world, David, what did God command Adam and Eve to do in Genesis 1:26 and 27? What did He say?
Well, I mean, they had to tend the garden.
Yeah, they have dominion, but what were they commanded to do? To be fruitful, multiply on the face of the earth.
Yeah, yeah. I started to say, God never told them. God never said that they wouldn't have children in the Garden of Eden. You're right. He told them to be fruitful and multiply. So,
So, so this is just plain wrong. They would have had no children unless they had sinned. That's just false. I mean,
yeah.
sorry. I mean, that's just wrong. So,
And it says doing no good. I don't even get that. What is it do good for they knew no sin? That's a contradiction. They're saying to do no good implies that you're doing evil. So now are they saying doing evil and not sinning are the same thing? I don't get that.
what I mean, they wouldn't. I think and also they would have had joy. Wherefore they would have remained in a state of innocence, having no joy. They would have
So
had.
joy, yeah. So they're saying basically that unless they had a state of misery, they had no concept of joy. I'm like, I don't know about that. I think they were pretty happy in the garden, and they were
Yeah.
pretty sorrowful because they had to leave it.
Right. Okay.
That
So
doesn't make any sense.
I just want to bring that up to everyone for their thoughts. Okay. So here's something even more interesting. So chapter 3 says Joseph in Egypt saw the Nephites in a vision, and he prophesied of Joseph Smith. And so Joseph Smith actually came from Joseph, from the fruit of his loins. I think that's kind of interesting.
So
See
he
here.
came from
So
Joseph.
this is Joseph in Egypt, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. This is Joseph. I'm sorry. This is Joseph, the son of Lehi, but who came from Joseph in Egypt. So he says, "For behold, thou art the fruit of my loins, and I'm a descendant of Joseph, who was carried captive into Egypt." Verse 4.
Okay.
Verse 5. Wherefore Joseph truly saw our day, and he obtained a promise of the Lord that out of the fruit of his loins the Lord God would raise up a righteous branch unto the house of Israel.
Wow.
This is Joseph Smith that he's saying, because he goes on to
So,
say, I mean, notice this though. I just want you to notice verse 6. Who shall be a choice seer unto the fruit of my loins? Verse 7. A choice seer will I raise up out of the fruit of thy loins. He says it like 10 times. Fruit of his loins, fruit of his loins. I mean,
so basically, he's comparing Joseph Smith to the Messiah.
well, he's comparing him to Moses. I mean, that's what he says in verse 9.
I don't know, but scroll back up to verse 7, I think it was. Or let's see, where it says the righteous branch.
Well, not the Messiah.
Yeah, he says he's going to raise up a righteous branch unto the house of Israel, not the Messiah. Well, why would he have to say not the Messiah? Because he's borrowing language from the Old Testament that applied to the Messiah. That's what Zechariah.
Isaiah 11.
Yeah,
Zechariah 3.
Yes, and so why is he having to clarify that? To me, if he's really writing in 600 BC, he wouldn't even have to clarify that. And the very fact that he's having to use the language there of the righteous branch that means he's basically saying Joseph Smith is like the Messiah. That's pretty bold.
Yeah, but and the fact that he says the fruit of your loins, fruit of his loins.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't know if you remember last time we talked about Doctrine and Covenants, and so Brigham Young said that Joseph Smith was a pure Ephraimite, and given the Aaronic priesthood, well, how is that even possible? I mean, he's not even from the right tribe. So
yeah. These guys didn't read their Bibles very well when they were trying to make this religion up.
Well, here's the thing. When I was telling you about this, remember the loss of the 116 pages?
Yeah.
So part of this was having to retrieve or to kind of be filler material. So this is what Sidney Rigdon is doing. He's doing some filler material, and he's trying to legitimatize or make Joseph Smith look authentic. So that's why he's trying to establish him coming as the descendant of Joseph. But even, I mean, look at this.
Righteous branch.
Look at verse 12.
He's not the Messiah.
The fruit of thy loins. The fruit of thy loins. I mean, he just keeps on saying that over and over and over again. But look at verse 17, or sorry, verse 18. No, verse 17. I'm sorry. So verse 17. I want you to read that and tell me what you think that's a prophecy about.
Okay.
The latter.
The latter part of 17, or
yeah, but go ahead and read it all.
Okay. And the Lord has said, I will raise up a Moses, and I will give power unto him in a rod, and I will give judgment unto him in writing. Yet I will not loose his tongue, that he shall speak much, for I will not make him mighty in speaking. But I will write unto him my law by the finger of mine own hand, and I will make a spokesman for him.
Make a
Sounds like
for him.
He's comparing Joseph Smith to Moses and Aaron here. Or somebody else is going to be like Aaron.
But who's Aaron? I could tell you who Aaron is. It's Sidney Rigdon.
Oh, okay.
So you see how Sidney Rigdon inserted himself into this.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So it's because it's interesting. So the Latter-day Saint Church began in April of 1830.
Yeah.
It wasn't until August that supposedly Joseph Smith, well, not Joseph Smith, but several Mormons journeyed toward Ohio. So they went west. They came to, I think it was Mentor, Ohio, is where where Sidney Rigdon was living. So they came there and they presented to him the Book of Mormon. And Sidney Rigdon, he kind of was like, "Oh, I need to find out if this is from God or not." And you can read about his conversion story, but it shows all sorts of signs that it was made up. I mean, he and so when Sidney Rigdon came to meet Joseph, or maybe it was Joseph Smith that came. I can't remember. Well, I can't remember now if it was Joseph Smith. No, they came to Ohio. So they came to Ohio, and so that's really how Mormonism actually grew, was in Ohio. Very interesting enough, because it was Sidney Rigdon that kind of opened the door, but it makes more sense if he was, part of this religious plot, that he was, he was one of the masterminds behind the scenes, so to speak. So it makes all the more sense. So just for like going a little bit further, here's some other questions I got. Second Nephi 9 and 10. So let's go there. And you just tell me if you're getting tired, and we can or how long you want to go.
We can go a little bit longer. We're at about an hour 21, so maybe this will be the last one here.
Okay, maybe we could finish Second Nephi is what we could do. So
okay.
So here in Second Nephi chapter 9 and 10, I want to ask you, does this sound familiar to you? Let me see here. Trying to. Sorry, I'm trying to find. Well, here's something. Here's something interesting to me, and I don't know where to start though. Is the part is okay. Um, so he's talking about the devil. We know that verse
Okay.
8. So he says, "Oh, the wisdom of God, His mercy and grace, provoke if the flesh should rise no more, our spirits must become subject to that angel who fell from before the presence of the eternal God and became the devil to rise no more." And basically talks about his mission, how he wants humans to become like him, so forth. Notice he
Yeah.
says, "An angel of light." Well, that's from
Ah.
Second Corinthians chapter 11. Now, here's something
Yeah.
else. Look what it says, to that being who beguiled our first parents. Hmm. Interesting, because 1 Timothy chapter 2, I want to pull up 1 Timothy chapter 2 for a moment. 1 Timothy 2, well, verse, I'm going to go through verse 15, I guess. Okay,
Okay.
so talking about, the rows of men and women, for Adam was formed first and Eve, and Adam was not deceived. I think, is it the American Standard? I think the American Standard uses the word beguiled,
I think so.
and that's interesting.
First Timothy 2:15. Pull it
Yeah.
up online.
No, not that one.
I've seen the word beguile somewhere before. Let me look and see. Um,
Here's the ASV. Okay. Yeah. For Adam was formed first and Eve, and Adam was not beguiled, but the woman being beguiled hath fallen into transgression.
yeah, it's the ASV, isn't it?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
American.
you're
Yeah,
right. The American
but
Standard
yet it
for
says here, who beguiled our first parents. That well, Adam wasn't beguiled.
yes.
He
Now
so.
Paul does say that sin entered into the world through Adam, but
Mhm.
nowhere does Paul say that Adam was deceived. In fact, he says quite the opposite, as we just saw in 1 Timothy 2.
So actually, I just found another contradiction, because I didn't actually have that one.
That's
But
interesting. He beguiled our first parent. He didn't beguile Adam. Adam's sin was he failed to be the spiritual leader of his house. He let Eve
mm-hmm,
run the show, so to speak, and he
right.
followed her into her problem instead of correcting Eve or whatever. He didn't stand up for God, as many of our fathers in our Christian homes are allowing the mothers to basically do the role of the father instead of the father stepping up and leading the house. That's not to say
Mhm,
that the woman doesn't lead the children too, but the father is the primary spiritual leader of the household, not the mother.
mhm.
And oftentimes, that's a lesson that we can learn, that we can teach today, is that one of the gravest sins is the fact that fathers are not stepping up and being spiritual leaders. And of course, we can see that with the fall of, in the African American world, the lack of fathers. We
Yeah,
can see the results of that.
yeah. If you notice here in verse 16, notice how he
I'm sorry,
quotes.
I kind of chased a rabbit there.
That's all right. I'll just pull you back. So notice this, verse 16. And surely as the Lord liveth, for the Lord God has spoken it, and it is his eternal word which cannot pass away. Well, that's from Matthew 24:35, I believe. My words will never pass away.
Yeah,
And then they who are righteous shall be righteous still, and they who are filthy shall be filthy still.
yeah, that's from Revelation as
That's
well,
from
isn't it?
Revelation. And
Yeah,
they shall go away into everlasting fire, prepare for them. Matthew 24, 35, I think it is.
yeah,
25, 34, sorry. And their torment is as a lake of fire and brimstone, whose flame ascends up forever
Revelation.
and ever. So we got
Revelation.
Matthew, Revelation. I mean, it's easy to see this is written in 600 BC supposedly, and yet it quotes from various books of the Bible there. So
And he's quoting it as if, these books were already in existence, and that the original people who heard this, he's quoting it as if they should be familiar with it. You know what I mean?
mhm. Right. Um, Let me go a little bit further here, just to let you. Um, I'm just trying to think here. What else I want to show you here? Chapter 20. Yeah. Let me go to chapter 26, verse 4. But I would everybody read chapter 9, and you'll see many, many quotations from the Old Testament and New Testament that have not even been written down yet. I think it's something to think about.
Yeah.
So now what's really interesting, I was telling you about filler material, and very, very interesting enough, I get to chapter, let's see, not chapter 11. Yeah, chapter 12. See, chapter 12, it starts quoting from Isaiah. So, look at it here at verse 8. Now I write some of the words of Isaiah, that whosoever of my people shall see these words may lift up their hearts and rejoice for all men. Uh, you know, I mean,
He's taken for granted that his audience knows who this Isaiah is.
well, I mean, and it's, and just to play, the Mormon. I mean, we know Isaiah did write in 750-ish BC, so it's had 150 years. They would have had they could have carried his prophecies, on a scroll to the New World.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't have any problems about that. But what's interesting is, they start quoting Isaiah chapter 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It goes all the way even until let's see. Keep going. 20. I guess what is the reason for quoting all of these chapters is what I like to know. Chapter 12, chapter 13. See, they got even Isaiah 13.
Wow.
14. I guess, okay, I could see, maybe one of the reasons was because they heard about Babylon overtaking Jerusalem. They left before Jerusalem was overtaken. So
Yeah.
that's the only really real reason I could see them quoting all this from Isaiah. But uh, my opinion is uh, um, that Sidney Rigdon was just using a lot of filler material. So
Yeah.
that's one of the because if you go to chapter 25 through the end of the book, it's also all about Rigdon's additions and stuff. If you read it, so
Interesting.
so yeah, I found this very interesting here. Verse 12. I know you know where this comes from. But behold, they shall have wars and rumors of wars. Matthew 24. Then verse 13, and behold, they will crucify him, and after he's laid in a sepulchre for the space of 3 days, he shall rise from the dead with healing in his wings. That's in Malachi chapter 4.
Yeah, and what's interesting is like they say things like they will crucify him, and that's extremely anachronistic. When the Old Testament prophets talked about the crucifixion, they didn't use the word crucify. They're
pierced.
Yeah,
Either
their description
pierced
was
or
yeah, it
Psalm
made
22
sense.
with the regards to they pierced my hands and my feet.
They used language that the original audience could understand about future events. You know, They didn't say crucify like that. So to me, that just shows that this is extremely anachronistic.
See, here again, talking about how Israel had been bitten by poisonous serpents. If
Yeah.
they would cast their eyes into the serpent, which he did raise up before them, and also gave him power that he should smite the rock, and the water should come forth. Yea, behold, I say unto you that as these things are true, and as the Lord God liveth, there is none other name given under heaven, say it be this Jesus Christ, of which I have spoken, whereby man can be saved.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting to me, once again, notice, you see here at the verse 18, Messiah, 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 but yet over here in verse 19 or verse 20, it quotes Christ, Christos in Greek, which means anointed one. But like I said about the word baptism, here it's transliterating, Christos in the Greek. That's what they did for English translations. I mean, they, in English translations, they should have put Messiah or anointed one.
Yeah.
But I mean, here we have a Greek phrase here, supposedly Reformed Egyptian. So I just, why the switchback between Messiah and Christ? I kind of wonder about that. Just wonder.
I guess they're just throwing around their language, their religious language that the people they were trying to fool would be like, ooh, okay, I understand what you're saying, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're almost there. We're just, I promise. Let's go a little bit further here. See, once again, verse 9. But the Son of Righteousness shall appear unto them, and he shall heal them. Definitely taken from Malachi, which hadn't been written down yet.
Yeah.
Very interesting enough. Look at verse 11. For the Spirit of the Lord will not always strive with man. Quoting from Genesis 6.
Yeah.
Look at verse 10 at the very bottom. Choose works of darkness rather than light. That's from John 3. Men choose darkness rather than light.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to ask you a question about. We're almost there. Yeah. So here's something interesting. Have you done a lot of study on chapter Isaiah 29? Have you studied Isaiah?
Isaiah 29. Let me pull it up on my screen here and let me look at it.
Sure.
The siege of Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm. Ariel be in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So they talk about Isaiah as a prophecy of the forthcoming of the Book of Mormon. They talk about how that sealed book.
Yeah.
See, and you can kind of get the commentary. So, okay, this really shows you whether or not the Book of Mormon is from God or not, because they are putting them. The book is putting itself on the line, stating that Isaiah 29 is talking about the forthcoming of the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
But if that's not what it's talking about, then it's false. So, you can read this here, and if you read Isaiah 29 carefully, it's talking about how Jerusalem, they were basically spiritually in a spiritual stupor, drunken stupor, and
yes,
they wouldn't listen. And so God's going to judge them. That's basically what it's about. It's not about what they say here,
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, chapter 28. Yeah. Look at here. Um, verse 7. Yea, and there shall be many which shall say, Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. So I don't know about you, but that seems to be familiar from to me from 1 Corinthians 15. So,
Yep.
and then look at here at the very bottom of verse 8. God will beat us with a few stripes. Well, that's from
Uh-huh.
Luke. I think
Parable.
Luke. I don't remember what chapter, but talking about
Yeah,
the
it's a parable.
many stripes
Yeah.
and the few stripes. So the blood, verse 10, the blood of the saints shall cry up from the ground against them. Well,
That's Revelation. In that
they've gone out
Revelation?
of the way. They've become corrupted. That's Romans.
Yeah.
I mean, I was telling, I've told Emily this a lot of times that it takes, it takes what's the old saying? It takes a thief to catch a thief, or it takes a,
Yeah.
it takes a preacher to catch a preacher too, because you can study your Bible and you know where these people are quoting from. You
You
can
know,
where he's quoting from. So
and what's funny is they don't even deny it because they've got these scripture references. Is this from their website? This translation or
yeah. I mean, this is the like the Bible has cross references. They have cross references. So
that's what I'm saying. They don't even deny that it's cross referencing these passages, which I
yeah.
think is kind of ironic to me.
I mean, therefore, woe be unto him that is at ease in Zion, verse 24. I mean, that's, I think that's Amos,
Yeah.
if I remember right.
Well, look
Um,
at the cross reference. They probably tell you.
well, yeah, Amos 6:1. No, you're right.
Amos 6:1.
So, um, so here, I want you to think about this one here. This probably this where I think we're 4 chapters away. So this is kind of what we dealt with in First Nephi, I think 13.
Yeah.
So verse 3, because my word shall hiss forth, many of the Gentiles shall say, a Bible. We have got a
Wow.
Bible, and there cannot be any more Bible. So, if we go to, this is what we do as, when we're talking to Latter-day Saints and we say, well, the Bible is God's final revelation to mankind.
Yeah.
Well, this is supposedly, a prophecy of that. But what's really interesting to me is, once again, it's a Greek word, a Greek transliteration,
Yeah.
biblios, which is book, just means
Yep.
book. And that to me is, telling and that it's anachronistic because you
It's
don't have the
very
word Bible.
inactive.
So now if it had said a book, I wouldn't have a problem with that. A book, we got a book. There could not be any more any more book, but um, anyways, so that to me is um, it just shows you that this was written in the 19th century. So
Yeah, and when you compare, and I like what you've done here by comparing this. Really, when you compare this to, the Bible itself, you can
mhm.
see the genre of literature, the kind of literature this is compared to what the Bible is. It's like it's just obviously this is not the same.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
the whole
we were talking about, the brevity of the Bible,
yeah
and maybe maybe I didn't show you this example. Um, let me show you one more. Let me show you an example that soon. But let me show you a little bit more here. And let's see. I'm just trying to find something that really sticks out. Because if you read these last few chapters, he quotes from the Bible even a lot. But I just,
yeah.
see, once again, he says, Now behold, my beloved brethren, this is the way, and there's no other way nor name given under heaven whereby man can be saved. I mean,
That's
Acts
for Acts
4, verse
Acts.
12, and he quotes that so much in this book. It's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of his favorite verses is Acts 3:21, where the restoration of the holy prophets. I mean, that's
Yeah.
where he quotes a lot from that too. Um, I wanted to see. Well, okay. Well, all right. Let me go to fourth Nephi, and that'll be the final end. Well, this is a good example here. Um, you know, we talk about the brevity of the Bible, and so there's nothing. Okay, there's nothing wrong with a parable. There's nothing wrong with a long parable, but this parable that's given. Let me just show you how many pages it is. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Almost 7 pages long.
That's
And
nothing like the parables of the Bible.
yeah, the parables of the Bible
Yeah.
are short, they're memorable. Um, you can
That's the
tell.
whole point of a parable.
Yeah, I can't, um, but here's the other thing. Look at here. You can tell where it comes from. Like I told you before, look at verse 3 here. O house of Israel, like unto a tame olive tree, which a man took and nourished in his vineyard, grew and waxed old and began to decay. And it came to pass the master of the vineyard went forth, and he saw his olive tree begin to decay, and he said, I will prune it and dig about it and nourish it.
Yeah.
Now, if anybody knows, this is from Luke 13. Let me see. Yeah. Well, let me just do Luke 13. Yeah. See, and he spake this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, came seeking fruit thereon, and found none. And look how long it is.
Yeah.
That's how long it is.
Yeah.
And yet this one is 7 pages long, and not that makes it, just because
That's
something's
not
long doesn't make it wrong.
necessarily. Yeah. Yeah. But it is odd.
But you have it have a mixture of Romans 11, Luke 13, and and hewn down and cast into the fire, Matthew 3. So
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
taken from that. But let me show you one more example of the brevity that it does not match up. So fourth Nephi here. Let me go to fourth Nephi. So here in fourth Nephi, I mean, I want you to read this here, verse 6 here.
And thus did the 30 and 8 years, 30 and 8th year pass away, and also the 30 and 9th, and 40 and 1st, and the 40 and 2nd. Yea, even until 40 and 9 years had passed away, and also the 50 and 51st, and the 50 and 2nd. Yea, and even until 50 and 9 years had passed away. Wow,
Okay.
that's really really
I'm,
beyond the pale right there.
okay. If we were real, if this really was inspired, you know what it would say? And thus did
Yes.
59 years had passed away. That's what it would have
Yeah,
said.
at most it might have thrown in an extra number just because sometimes they do stuff like that, but to
Mhm.
go have like 9 different numbers is not even realistic.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's beyond the pale.
um, let me do. Okay, I gotta do one last one to see if you see what I see, and this will be
Okay.
it. uh, well, I'm sorry. There's just so many. There's so many problems here, and I know we're not gonna get to them all.
well,
Um,
well, while you're finding it, I think that this is an important point here. Any so-called alleged contradiction in the Bible, the ones that are the most difficult that people really struggle with, at most I can probably put on one hand those that are kind of, I wouldn't say troubling, but they make you kind of do a little work. Most of the alleged contradictions that you see in the Bible have an obvious answer to them. If you have any semblance of Bible knowledge, you can read the so-called contradiction and be like, well, I can explain this. you know But when when you're looking at the book of this right here, and you're seeing all of these problems, to me, it's like if it's got all of these problems, something's wrong. Something's wrong with it.
Yeah, third Nephi. I want you to look at this. Okay, so third Nephi 11. So Jesus actually appeared after he ascended into heaven in Acts chapter 1. He actually came back down and went to America. So yeah, and here's he appears under this multitude, okay? And look what it says here. And verse 15. It came to pass that the multitude went forth and thrust their hands into his side and did feel the prints of the nails in his hands and in his feet. And this they did do, going forth one by one until they all gone forth and did see with their eyes and did feel with their hands and know of a surety and did bear record that it was he of whom it was written by the prophets that should come. Okay. What's
a little bit overkill there.
What's the problem with that?
No pun intended. No pun intended. Sorry.
What's the problem there? I mean, you have people, imitating Thomas.
Yeah.
And yet, I want to show you how many people are actually there, supposedly. That was, I'm looking for the scripture reference, sorry. 3 Nephi 11, 15, 17, okay, chapter 17, 25. This is where we learn how many people were there. And I want you to do the math, okay? And the multitude did see and hear and bear record that know that the record is true. For all of them did see and hear, every man for himself, and they were in number about 2,500, and they did consist of men, women, and children. Okay, it says all of them put their hand in his to feel the prints of the nails in his hands and feet, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say each person was 30 seconds. You know how long it would take for 2,500 people times 30 seconds? Just curiosity.
Well, divide it by 2, and that'll tell you how many minutes.
Yeah, 75. Let's see, 75,000. So
how many people? 2,500. Well, that's seconds. So divide 2,500 by 2.
Or 2,500 divided by 2, yeah. So
that's how many minutes. Now divide that by, say, 60. And I'll tell you how many hours that would be.
So,
20, so you're looking at 20 hours.
20 hours of people.
That doesn't. No, it's not even realistic there. No.
I'm sorry, but that just seems to be a little bit, like you said, overkill.
Wow.
Okay. We probably better end this podcast now.
Yeah. And, this would, if this would be funny if it wasn't so serious. Unfortunately, there are many people who have been, in using the word that we talked about earlier, have been beguiled by this religion. And so,
yeah.
I wish they would do their own critique of their own religion to see if it were so, as the Bereans, they searched the scriptures to see if it were so.
Yeah. Well, we definitely will look at some more problems later on. I really appreciate you actually being with me so that you could, I mean, we do in this because we really do, honestly. I know we were laughing, but we're trying to show you the absurdity of this.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to be mean toward anybody, but sometimes you have to be like an Elijah, and because Elijah, he poked fun at those prophets of Baal of what they believed in, Um,
Yes. Yes.
and sometimes it takes some harsh ridiculing to help some people, anyways, to kind of wake up. So
Well, and the thing about it is, when something is so obviously false, then there is no excuse. Obviously, these folks have not done a critique of their own religion. If they did, they're either um, they either have not done a critique of their own religion, or they don't want to do it, and they're just in that religion for tradition's sake, maybe
yeah,
family members' sake,
yeah.
um,
I
which
talked.
which we yeah.
Well, I talked to another David, and I said you're either ignorant or you're dishonest. So let's say they do start studying this information,
Yeah.
and you still hold on to this. Um, then you become dishonest.
Well,
Um,
and it's not just Mormonism. This is true
right.
of any of any worldview that's not true. That's not the
Yeah.
Christian worldview.
Right.
Um, it ultimately either you are dishonest, or you are ignorant of it and simply choose to be ignorant of it.
hmm Like, for example, just recently, I know of, sadly, I know of two sisters in Christ who are now considering going into Roman Catholicism, and it really shocked me. Um, and if you study Roman Catholicism, I, I mean, it's to me, it's easy to see all the things that they practice that are not in alignment with the scriptures.
Right.
I mean, the Pope. I mean, you name it. Praying to Mary. I mean, it seems so obvious, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
there's I can recall um, a friend of mine who actually went to Free Hardeman. I believe he got his MDiv actually, which is pretty amazing. That he left the church, basically went into like Greek Orthodox, and I'm
hmm
at a loss as to why he did that. If anybody should have known better, he should have known better, and it kind of makes me wonder why. There's got to be some kind of ulterior motive to do that. I just can't believe that he would be beguiled into believing Greek Orthodox is the right religion, you
hmm
know.
Yeah.
And there's got to be something there. I'm not sure what, but some people, I think, choose to be blinded for whatever reason.
hmm So, if anybody out there is studying this material, we hope you are. Really, please um, consider studying with us. We really would love to. We don't mind. Hey, we don't mind studying with anyone. We're. I know both David and I are open to any criticism that people may have. So.
Yes, this is not just about a critique of Mormonism. This could also be a critique of any worldview, because ultimately, as Paul says, we need to prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. And that's within the Christian worldview. But even the Christian, that shows you that even the Christian worldview, they or we want to know the truth. And we're encouraged, even within our worldview, we're encouraged to test the spirits, to prove all things, to reason from the scriptures. And so, our own worldview encourages us to do that. And so we want to study not only what the scriptures say, but we want to reason about reality itself, and to see which worldview makes the most sense of reality.
Yeah. Well, with that, I really appreciate David being with me, and we're gonna have maybe one or two more of these on the Book of Mormon, anyways, because there are a lot of problems, and so we want to let people see it for themselves. So,
Yes, yes. I
all
enjoyed it,
right,
Shane. A very good study.
all right. We all
And we'll
take
see.
y'all take
Yeah,
care,
we'll
and we'll see y'all later. Bye
see
bye.
y'all soon. Bye bye.